Saruman's last breath wasn't supposed to end like this, murdered by his pathetic servant on a dirt road in the Shire. What most Tolkien scholars won't tell you is that his death wasn't just satisfying. It was the culmination of a cosmic plan set in motion before Middle-earth even existed. In the next 12 minutes, I'll reveal why Saruman's fate wasn't just deserved, it was inevitable. And the hidden pattern behind his downfall will completely transform how you understand evil in Tolkien's world. The films show you this: a wizard corrupted by Sauron. The truth is this: a divine being who deliberately unmade himself over thousands of years. Stay with me, because once you understand what Tolkien was really doing with Saruman's character, you'll never watch Lord of the Rings the same way again. For casual fans who only recall the films, picture Christopher Lee's Saruman impaled on a spike in The Return of the King, a scene not in Tolkien's books. For Silmarillion scholars, his death by Wormtongue's knife in the Shire mirrors Melkor's betrayal by his own lieutenant, Sauron. Through 17 subtle clues scattered across texts from the Silmarillion to unfinished tales, Tolkien shows this white wizard was always destined for disgrace. You've likely seen the films where Lee's commanding presence makes Saruman seem formidable, even in defeat. But have you considered that his pathetic end wasn't just satisfying, but inevitable? The White Wizard's downfall reveals something profound about how evil functions in Middle-earth, not as dramatic villainy, but as the slow erosion of purpose. For casual viewers, Saruman appears as a once good wizard corrupted by Sauron's influence. For those familiar with the ancient history of Arda, his fall began when he chose craftsmanship over compassion at the dawn of time. Welcome to Middle-earth Unveiled. Every week, we unveil secrets, explore untold stories, and revisit the timeless magic of Tolkien's world. If you want to be part of a fellowship dedicated to wonder and wisdom, subscribing helps us reach others who share your curiosity. Let's dive into today's story. To understand Saruman's fall, we must first understand his origins. While the films present him simply as the head of the Wizard's Order, Tolkien's deeper lore reveals a being whose identity was forged at the dawn of creation. Before taking human form, Saruman was Curanir, a Maia spirit in service to Aulë, the divine craftsman who taught him to shape materials with precision and power. As Tolkien notes in Unfinished Tales, Curanir was the eldest and came first, and after him, Mithrandir and Radagast. His white robes weren't merely symbolic of leadership, they reflected his origin as a being of pure craftsmanship and ordered knowledge. This origin is crucial. Saruman's nature inclined him toward control and precision, not wisdom or compassion. His journey traces a devastating arc. In Valinor, shaping jewels and materials under Aulë's tutelage. In Orthanc, twisting Aulë's craft into engines of war and domination. In the Shire, reduced to petty vandalism and spite. In the Two Towers, when Gandalf warns that he who breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom, he's not just criticizing Saruman's war machines. He's identifying how Saruman perverted his creator's gifts, echoing how Aulë once created the dwarves without Eru's consent. But unlike his master, Saruman never learned humility. What does it reveal about the nature of evil that Saruman's final act was not to destroy a kingdom or fortress, but to pollute gardens and small comforts? The answer illuminates the very heart of Tolkien's moral universe, that evil is not strength magnified, but purpose abandoned. Saruman's first betrayal wasn't of Middle-earth, it was of his own mission. When the 5 Istari were sent to Middle-earth, they came with a sacred charge: to oppose Sauron by guiding and inspiring the free peoples, not by matching power with power. Gandalf embraced this limitation. Saruman came to resent it. What most readers miss is that Saruman's corruption wasn't a sudden turn, but a gradual erosion spanning centuries. In Unfinished Tales, Tolkien writes that Saruman soon became jealous of Gandalf, and, His knowledge of the lore of the Rings of Power was great. Notice the pattern forming. Saruman measured power against power, never considering wisdom or morality. The contrast between the wizards becomes clear when we examine their relationship with knowledge. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf admits what he doesn't know. I have no clear answers to all my questions. Saruman, however, declares in the Two Towers, I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman Ringmaker. This is where things get truly fascinating. Saruman's obsession with ring lore wasn't a response to Sauron's rising power. It predated it. His studies weren't to counter the enemy, but to emulate him. The White Wizard didn't fall because he studied darkness too long. He studied darkness because he had already fallen. His very title, Ringmaker, parodies his original master Aulë's creative work, both created without proper authority. But while Aulë repented, Saruman doubled down. The sound of Orthank's forges in the films, cold, metallic clangs, stands in stark contrast to how the Silmarillion describes Aulë's workshops, which rang with joyous labor, one created out of love, the other out of envy. The Palantír of Orthanc wasn't just Saruman's downfall, it was the mirror that revealed his true nature. While the film suggests Saruman was simply corrupted through the stone, Tolkien's texts reveal a more complex truth. The Palantíri were originally gifts from the elves to faithful Númenóreans, tools of vigilance and connection between distant lands. In Saruman's hands, this noble gift became a weapon turned against its intended purpose, just as Saruman himself had been. Gandalf explains in the Two Towers, he looked in the stone and was deceived. He was given to understand that his knowledge was appreciated. He became a servant of the Eye. This progression reveals the seeds of Saruman's corruption, not just fear of Sauron, but hunger for validation. Even Orthanc's location is symbolic, positioned at the crossroads of realms, reflecting Saruman's desire to control all domains. His machinery encroaching on Fangorn mirrors how Morgoth deforested ancient Beleriand in the First Age, destruction in service of dominion. What makes this particularly significant is that Saruman was not deceived through ignorance. As Tolkien notes in letter number 153, Saruman had made a study of the arts of the enemy himself. This wasn't innocent curiosity corrupted, it was hubris seeking validation. His pride mirrors that of Ar-Pharazôn in the Akallabeth. Both believed they could challenge a Dark Lord on his own terms. Both were destroyed by their own tools. The difference? Ar-Pharazôn was merely human. Saruman was a divine being who knew better. The Palantír didn't corrupt Saruman, it simply revealed the corruption that was already there, hidden beneath layers of wisdom and self-deception. Why would a fallen Maia, a being who once helped shape the universe, care about a few acres of hobbit farmland? For most viewers, Saruman's attack on the Shire seems like a narrative epilogue, but for Tolkien, it was the crystallization of his thesis on evil's true nature. Compare the manifestations of evil: Sauron's Mordor, volcanic wastelands, armies of orcs, world domination. Saruman's Shire, smoldering trash heaps, bored hobbit bullies, spite. When Frodo and Sam return home in The Return of the King, they see their beloved Shire transformed into a sensory hellscape of chopped trees and ugly new houses, the once clean river blocked with a stinking dam. This mirrors Feanor's obsession with Morgoth in the Silmarillion. Both became fixated on destroying what they could not possess. But there's something even more revealing here. Tolkien presents two seemingly contradictory explanations for Saruman's actions. In letter number 183, Saruman was ruined before the Lord of the Rings opens. His corruption lay in his willingness to serve the enemy. Yet in letter number 246, Saruman's case is peculiarly instructive. He was given, as all the Istari, the task of combating Sauron. The contradiction resolves when we understand that Saruman's attack on the Shire wasn't about the hobbits at all. it was about Gandalf. Saruman knew Gandalf loved the Shire and its people. Destroying it was his revenge against the one who had surpassed him. This reveals something crucial about the nature of evil in Tolkien's world. As beings fall from their purpose, their scope diminishes. Saruman begins with the potential to help save all of Middle-earth, but ends concerned only with spiting his rival. His evil isn't grand or cosmic like Sauron's. It's petty, spiteful, and ultimately small. His final act wasn't to conquer a kingdom, but to ruin gardens and pollute streams. That's the true horror of Saruman's fall. Not that he became powerful in darkness, but that he became increasingly insignificant. At first glance, Saruman's death by Wormtongue's knife seems almost anticlimactic. But in Tolkien's cosmology, it's the perfect culmination of divine justice. In Tolkien's works, the greatest evils are often undone by the smallest hands. Sauron by a hobbit, Morgoth wounded by an elf, and Saruman, a divine being, slain by the most wretched of men. This pattern isn't coincidental. It's central to Tolkien's understanding of how grace operates in a fallen world. What most readers miss is the profound irony of Saruman's end. In The Return of the King, Tolkien writes, "To the dismay of those that stood by, about the body of Saruman a grey mist gathered, and then a wind came, and it was borne away. For a Maia, an immortal spirit who helped sing the world into existence, to be reduced to a mist scattered by the wind represents the ultimate diminishment." The name Wormtongue itself carries deeper significance in Tolkien's linguistic framework. Worm, in Old English, meant serpent or dragon, creatures associated with treachery. Tongue represents speech, Saruman's primary weapon. When Wormtongue kills Saruman, the serpent's speech turns against its master. This mirrors how Saruman's own voice, what Gandalf called the most dangerous of his spells, ultimately failed him, becoming less suave, more shrill and querulous as his power diminished. What if Saruman had accepted Frodo's mercy when offered on the road? His refusal reveals the final stage of his corruption. Evil cannot comprehend redemption because it has forgotten its original purpose. Most see Wormtongue as a pathetic sidekick, but he functions as the instrument of cosmic justice. Just as Gollum unwittingly fulfilled the quest by taking the ring into the fire, Wormtongue completes Saruman's punishment. The being who sought to control others through manipulation is killed by his most manipulated pawn. Saruman's punishment wasn't death, it was reduction. For mortals in Middle-earth, death can be a gift, what Tolkien called the escape from the circles of the world. But for an immortal Maia like Saruman, the dissolution of his spirit represents something far worse than death. It's erasure from the cosmic order, from participating in the music of the Ainur that shaped creation to ending as a wisp of smoke. Tolkien shows evil not as a force that builds, but one that diminishes. While Sauron's spirit endured after his defeats, diminished but still existent, Saruman's spirit is described as being borne away, suggesting complete dissolution. This distinction is crucial. In letter number 156, Tolkien explains that when Gandalf died, his spirit was sent back with enhanced power and wisdom. Saruman, in contrast, doesn't return, he dissolves. The difference lies in their faithfulness to their original purpose. Gandalf remained true. Saruman abandoned his mission. What could be more terrifying for a being who once helped shape the universe than to end as nothing? This is the true horror of Saruman's fate, and it reveals Tolkien's profound theological understanding of evil, not as power, but as its absence. Tolkien, a devout Catholic, viewed sin not as addition, but as subtraction. Evil doesn't add to a person, but diminishes them. Saruman's end physically manifests this concept. The more he reached for power, the less of himself remained, until finally, nothing was left. The films portray Saruman's death as sudden violence, a fall onto a spike. But the books present something far more profound. a being of cosmic power reduced to a puff of smoke that even the wind rejects. Think about it. Saruman began as a Maia who helped sing the world into existence. He ends as less than the least hobbit. At least they have souls that persist beyond death. And that's the ultimate irony. In seeking to transcend his limitations through power, he lost even the immortality he naturally possessed. This pattern of diminishment wasn't punishment imposed from outside. It was the natural consequence of Saruman's choices. By repeatedly turning away from his purpose, he gradually unmade himself. Saruman's arc isn't just about a wizard who chose the wrong side. It's about the nature of evil itself. What makes Saruman's fall so much more tragic than Sauron's? While Sauron was aligned with darkness from early in his existence, Saruman abandoned a sacred purpose, and in doing so, unmade himself piece by piece. Tolkien wasn't just telling a story about a wizard gone bad. He was illustrating his deeply held belief that evil isn't a force, it's an absence. In letter number 183, Tolkien explicitly connects this to Augustine's concept that evil is a privation of good, not a thing in itself, but the lack of what should be there. This understanding transforms how we read not just Saruman's story, but the entire moral landscape of Middle-earth. Evil doesn't create. It can only corrupt what's already been created. It doesn't add, it subtracts. It doesn't strengthen, it diminishes. Imagine if Saruman had remained true to his mission. He might have stood beside Gandalf at the Black Gate or counseled Aragorn as king. Instead, his jealousy reduced him to a petty tyrant of a few square miles, then to a roadside beggar, then to nothing at all. From crafting the physical world alongside Aulë to stuffing Bag End with stolen trinkets, this is evil as diminishment, not empowerment. The resonance of this theme extends far beyond fantasy literature. How often in our own world do we see people sacrifice who they truly are for what they think will make them powerful? Like Saruman, we risk becoming smaller versions of ourselves when we abandon our authentic purpose for status or control. Saruman deserved his fate, not because cosmic justice demanded punishment, but because he had already chosen his reduction. His physical diminishment merely manifested what had already occurred spiritually. The final shot of Orthanc in the films, isolated, surrounded by flooded pits, perfectly symbolizes what happens when we choose power over purpose. We end up alone, surrounded by the ruins of what we've destroyed. In the end, Saruman's tragedy isn't that he was punished too harshly, but that he punished himself more severely than any external force could have. And perhaps that's the most profound lesson Tolkien offers us about the nature of evil. It is, ultimately, its own undoing.